Always ready to help.
But I think that the thing of that awkwardness is the fuel. It's like we were talking about having imposter syndrome that I don't think it ever goes away. I thought one day it would go away. I'm more comfortable meeting famous people now than I've ever been before, but I still feel full of shit. I think you always will. And everybody that I've ever talked to that's any good, they all say the same thing. Like they all kind of feel like no one ever feels like they're anything special. And you always like...
If they're any good, they don't.
No, and you always ruthlessly self-critical.
And trying to get better. I mean, I've worked with big actors, big rock stars, and the big rock stars, like one big rock star one time said to me, I opened, he said, "Is there anyone out there?" I said, like 19,000 people. You smell the WD-40? That's how they got the last 1,000 people in. Are you kidding? He said, I'm always worried that no one's going to show up. I said, when has that ever been your problem? He said, well, never, but...
Who is this?
Ozzy.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, who's just one of my favorite people. He's another guy.
Is anyone out
He's
there?
honest.
How many people?
Hey, man, is there anyone out there, man? And I said, are you kidding? We're like in some Floridian megadome. I was thinking there won't be anyone out there, man.
No.
And he goes out there and the place goes nuts. The show is great.
Of course.
And I said, you worry about people don't show up? I get really depressed, man. And I went, okay. And, you know, I did the Beacon Theater once many years ago in New York. Beautiful room.
Love that place.
I was a few days later, I was at MTV doing something with like Matt Pinfield or somebody. I was living in New York and I'm leaving and the courtesy lady, she said, hey, George Carlin is in the green room and he wants to meet you. I went, wait a minute, dumb question. The George Carlin? Because I've been listening to that guy since I was in 8th grade. Class Clown and Occupation Fool actually came out for me to go to the record store. They were not nice price records. They were what was on. That's how old I am. Memorized them by 8th grade, of course. And I said, George Carlin wants to meet me? Okay. Walk in, and there's George Carlin. He's there to promote his next HBO thing. And he's going to do like multiple nights at the Beacon Theater, place I would never sell out. He's going to do a month there, whatever. And he said, hey, I said, Mr. Carlin. He said, I'm George. I'm like, wow. He said, oh, you did a book signing the other night at Tower Records. I said, yeah. He goes, oh, man, it was so cool. I was in line for like half an hour. And finally, I got so cold, I went home. I said, you waited in line to meet me? He's like, yeah. I'm like, why don't you just walk in? Like, oh, I can't do that, man. And
wow.
And he said, so you just were at the Beacon? I said, yeah, it was amazing. He said, did they get the jokes? I said, uh-oh, because that's not really what I do. I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? He goes like, can you get to the audience from that stage? I said, it's actually a pretty big place. It's a lot of feet before the first row. I said, yeah. I said, you're George Carlin. I think you're going to do okay. But he was sincerely wondering, like, is it going to be okay in there? I'm like, are you kidding? You were handcuffed with Lenny Bruce in the back of a cop car, and you're asking me if it's going to be okay?
Was he handcuffed with Lenny Bruce?
Yeah, it's in that great book. It's in that great book, Ladies and Gentlemen, Lenny Bruce.
Ah, I got that book.
It's a great read. That's a read and a half. I read it like 22 years ago. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think I read it that long ago too.
Okay.
I forgot about George
There was
Carlin.
a time when as you know, the First Amendment was not being used in Lenny Bruce's life towards the end of his life, and that was every stand-up thing he did was about the law towards the end. And he was doing a show one night. George Carlin was there, underage, and George said something, and they were waiting. They pounced on him, and then they went through the crowd, ID. Oh, come here, youngster. And they handcuffed them together. So I said, and that's how you met Lenny Bruce, right? He said, no, I had met him before. But he said, like, we were literally one pair of handcuffs together, just like the book. But I thought that's not how we met. I said, so how'd you guys meet? He said, Lenny Bruce was very sympathetic to young comics. So what we would do is, like he said, give me your best 5 minutes, and he would critique us.
Wow.
I said, is he trying to take your material? He said, no. He said, like, okay, leave that part out. That part sucks. Do more of that. And that first part, put it last. He would like help. Wow. And he said he was great with all the young comics. He said, like, give me your stuff. Okay, here's how you redo it. Make it better. I said, so you had known him before? He said, yeah. I said, because, Lenny Bruce to me is a real, again, a hero, an inspiration. He fought back. And I walked out of there into like, the freezing, East New York to take the N or the R back down to the East Village. But the fact that here's this guy, the point I'm making is Stone Cold Pro, anywhere where I sell out half the tickets, he does 20 nights there. You'll never get out of that shadow. And even he is saying, hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
And here's what I've found with all of your big actors and the ones I've worked with, they are obedient to the muse. They work for the art. They are so subservient to the job. It's not about, hey, I'm rich, I'm popular. It's like, damn it, I got to make this script come to life.
Right.
And they fear it like someone on their first job. And there might have been a middle period, like in the 70s, they had their idiot phase for 3 years and they kind of went sideways. But man, the big actors I've worked with are just so like, okay, this take is everything. And it's a good lesson. You're like, okay, never lose that.
Yeah, because